By fall harvest, the Pilgrims had plenty of food. To thank Squanto and the other Native Americans, the Pilgrims invited them to share their harvest. And that's the true story of Thanksgiving. And they lived happily ever after.
No, they didn't. That book doesn't even have anything to do with the real story.
Julie, it says right here, it's a Thanksgiving story.
That's about a book about Pete the cat. He had nothing to do with the first Thanksgiving.
Oh, yes, he did. Look, right here, it shows a picture of him on the Mayflower. See?
It's a drawing. It's a children's book.
Well, I have other books. Look. You're wearing me out. Here's another picture of how wonderful things were. Look at, they're very happy. They're eating together.
I think the illustrator is sending a subliminal message. The children are playing blind man's bluff.
You know, you just can't let it go, can you? You know, wait, I have more. Here, man, you're really upsetting me. Here's another picture. Look at how happy they are. And they're all getting along.
And aside from the fact that it's a picture of 3 women serving them, those are not real pictures. Someone made them up. They could put anything they wanted in the drawings or paintings because no one who attended had a cell phone or a camera. There are many versions of what happened at Plymouth by various authors and illustrators. Not everything you read or see is true. Not all the stories about an event are the same or even true. Your story is different from mine and vice versa.
I am shocked, Julie. Thank you so much. Thank you for bursting my bubble. Then I guess I can't read Charlie Brown Solves Christmas next month, can I?
Probably not. Let's try to stick to the real story. When I was a child, Thanksgiving was simple. It was about turkey and dressing, love and laughter, time for family to gather around a feast and to be thankful for the year that had passed and be hopeful for the year to come.
In school, the story we learned was also simple. It painted a picture of courageous Christian settlers braving the perils of the New World with the help of some friendly natives, finding a way to make a happy new life for themselves, and along the way, Pilgrims and Native Americans came together to give thanks.
That story was wrong. We made pictures of the gathering, everyone smiling. We colored turkeys or made them out of construction paper. We sometimes had a mini feast in class. There was a lump stereotype that Native Americans wear all the same regalia. There are some paintings that have the Wampanoag wearing the regalia of Plains Indians. That was also wrong.
Oh, I thought it was just a beautiful story. People reaching across race and culture to share with one another, to commune with one another. But, you know, that's not the full story of Thanksgiving. Like so much of the American history, the story has had its least attractive features winnow away. White people have been centered in the narrative, and all atrocity has been politely just papered over.
At Thanksgiving time, we are reminded that we should give thanks, but little explanation is usually given to us about why we should do that. Of course, we know that expressing gratitude is polite, and when we're in a happy mood and wanting to please others, good manners might be reason enough.
But just in case we aren't feeling all that happy or worrying all that much about what others think or feel, or just in case some troubles are causing us not to be quite so grateful this year, then we might want to look at giving thanks in a different way. It might just help to understand some reasons why being thankful might still benefit us. So let's correct that.
What is widely viewed as the first Thanksgiving was a 3-day feast to which the kind, thankful pilgrims had invited the local Wampanoag people as a celebration of the harvest. Actually, that's wrong too. If you were paying attention last week, you know what happened.
The pilgrims arrived on land that the Wampanoag had lived on for more than 12,000 years. They were farmers and hunters, and they had seen ships before. They had seen traders and fishermen, but they had not seen women and children before. And according to their way, they would never have brought their women and children, they would never have brought their women and children into harm. Therefore, they thought of them as peaceful people.
Squantono, who was an English-speaking Wampanoag, had been kidnapped years before and sent to Spain, where he was sold as a slave. He learned English and eventually made his way back to the home of his tribe in the area of southeastern Massachusetts.
He taught them to plant corn, how to fish, gather berries and nuts. The white settlers were sometimes surprised to see their Indian neighbors walking past their open doors with their arms full of vegetables from the gardens. Now, to the Indians, this wasn't wrong, because the vegetables grew in the ground, and they felt that they had a right to them.
The pilgrims had been desperate and sick and dying, but had finally had some luck with the crops. That fall, after a successful harvest and in preparation for a celebratory meal, they sent 4 men out to shoot some fowl. The natives heard the shots, and soon the chief and 90 warriors showed up to find out what was going on. There wasn't enough food, so the Indians were sent out and came back with 5 deer, which they presented to the chief of the town. This custom, a food giveaway, continues to this day among many tribes.
Dick and I had planned a vacation around attending the feast day at the Santo Domingo Pueblo in New Mexico. At that time, about 20 years ago, outsiders were only welcome on one day, August 4th. They have since discovered the benefits of tourist dollars, and they've become a little bit more welcoming. No cameras, recording devices, or even sketching was allowed. It's the largest Indian dance ceremony held in the Southwest. After Mass in the Mission Church, the statues are carried out to the main plaza, where a bough-covered shrine is located. There the elders are seated out of the sun, and the various clans of the Pueblo take turns dancing. Did I say the heat was unbearable? In front of the shrine, there were bowls of food, which had been sitting there for hours, and they were drawing flies the size of B-52 bombers. They gave out loaves of bread to random people who were attending, and then we were invited to partake of the food. There were bowls of lemonade being passed around, with everyone drinking out of the same bowls. It was the most raw, Aboriginal celebration that we ever attended, and we participated in many in Western United States, as well as in the Midwest.
Feast days and Wasagi are held to thank their ancestors for their sacrifice, to celebrate their resilience, and to demonstrate that their songs, dances, spirits, and ceremonies survive. The Ojibwe do giveaways where they give gifts, usually blankets in honor and memory of a beloved departed member of the family. Traditionally, Native American wealth wasn't determined by how much you possessed, but by how much you gave away.
Now, the event with the pilgrims lasted 3 days. Remember, they had to cook that deer. They also had lobster, clams, berries, fruit, pumpkins, and squash. And everyone lived happily ever after.
Wrong. While Thanksgiving is one of our favorite holidays, it is quite often a day of mourning and protest for Native peoples, and not just the Wampanoags, because it commemorates the arrival of settlers in North America and the centuries of oppression, and genocide that followed.
Now, the pilgrim-centric view, so often presented by two famous paintings depicting the first Thanksgiving, featured the natives pictured in subservient positions, outnumbered and crouching on the ground at the edge of the frame. Another myth is that the Wampanoag were feasting with friends. That doesn't appear to be true.
After the visits to the New World by Samuel de Champlain and Captain John Smith in the early 1600s, a terrible illness spread through the region among the Native Americans. Modern scholars have argued that indigenous communities were devastated by leptospirosis, a disease caused by the Old World bacteria that had likely reached New England through the feces of rats that arrived on the European ships. This weakening of the native population by disease from the new arrival ships created an opening for the pilgrims. King James called this spread of disease a wonderful plague that might help to devastate and depopulate the region. Some friends.
But many of these native people were not killed by disease, would be killed by direct deed. The celebration in 1621 did not mark a friendly turning point and did not become an annual event. Relations between them and the settlers deteriorated, leading to the Pequot War. Just 16 years after they shared that meal, the Indians were massacred. This is just one of the earliest episodes in which settlers and colonists did something horrible to the natives. There would be other massacres and many wars.
I spent most of my life believing a gauzy kindergarten version of Thanksgiving, thinking only of feasts and family, turkey and dressing. I was blind, willfully ignorant, I suppose, to the bloodier side of the Thanksgiving story, to the more honest side of it. But I've come to believe that is how America would have it. If it had its druthers, we would be blissfully blind, living in a soft world bleached of hard truth. We can no longer abide that, or in other words, wake up and smell the coffee. How can we celebrate a holiday that was the result of such devastation? How did thanks become the focus word?
Now, I started thinking about being thankful, but then that word grateful just kept working its way into my thoughts. Are they the same thing? Interchangeable? And then this popped into my already confused mind. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Now, that's from Colossians 3:15 through 17. More confusion. And then a friend said to me, you know, you're thinking too hard. But I kept moving forward. And then I found this. Gratitude is an emotion expressing an appreciation for what one has opposed, for what one has as to what one wants. Also, gratitude is a thankful appreciation for what one receives, tangible or intangible, as they acknowledge the goodness in their lives. Being thankful or thanking someone often implies you're acknowledging your thanks for something that someone's given you. Well, at that point, I decided that one of those words had to disappear, and thankful survived. Now, I'm still having a hard time reconciling the word with anything that happened at Plymouth Plantation, but, you know.
It is a wonderful word. We stand taller when someone, before COVID, would hug us and say, "I'm so thankful that I have you in my life." Sometimes it's the little things in life that we give thanks for. Some people are thankful to have shoes, bread, or fresh air. But sometimes we have trouble expressing the fact that we are thankful. Maybe it's a bad attitude, or you figure, why bother? It's not important. Why are we tempted to think that we are always in need of more or something better? And when we don't get it, we become discontented and unable to thank God as we should.
Some tie their thankfulness to human success. We think blessings must include having friends, a job, doing well in school, having a home, or money. Now, what happens when things don't go well at work, school, or with friends, or when we get sick or we have to move or relocate? Has God stopped blessing us that we should no longer be thankful? Absolutely not.
Should we counteract negative thinking by reminding ourselves that others have it worse? Again, no. That may help us accept the problem, but it doesn't help us get thankful hearts. We should remember that every moment that we have is a gift from God. Those moments should be celebrated.
I keep thinking, or maybe it's just because I'm older, Thanksgiving's changed. Do you remember what it was like? Did your family have grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles and cousins at your house for a big Thanksgiving meal? Or did you go to someone else's house? Or was your day small and quiet? Someone once said that it's all about getting your entire dysfunctional family under the same roof and hoping that the police don't get called. Now, some of us remember Irma Bobick, and she said Thanksgiving dinners take 18 hours to prepare. They are consumed in 12 minutes. Half times take 12 minutes. This is not about coincidence.
Here's a memory that was shared. Within the first 5 years after my divorce, I was finally getting on my feet. Being a single mom with a 6-year-old at home, I had started dating a single divorced man with 2 boys. My older children were away for this Thanksgiving. My thought was to invite him and his boys over for a real Thanksgiving event. I had the turkey in the oven and had prepared all the trimmings and was ready to set the table. Lo and behold, I had been so busy and had not entertained for 5 years, and I did not have all the matching place settings for the 5 of us. What I did then was I set each place setting with odds and ends of dishes. I announced to my guests that they noticed that their table setting matched, but did not match with others. Each person had their own private setting to eat from. I found out that year it is not the setting of the dishes that makes Thanksgiving special. It is acceptance of what you have and who you share it with. Thank you, Karen.
Growing up, did you dress up? Did you wear your Sunday clothes for the occasion? Is the day more casual now? Yeah. Is it just another day, and have we forgotten that being thankful is even part of the day? For many of us, this year won't be a normal Thanksgiving. Due to the COVID regulations for social gatherings, we may be missing friends and family that we usually spend at least part of the day with.
This was shared by John. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. The food, people getting together, and not having the hubbub of gifts. A number of years ago, my older sister and I decided to change the Thanksgiving menu. We thought a change would prove fun, so we prepared an Oriental dinner. It didn't work. People wanted to know when the traditional dinner was to be served.
Being part of a military family for so many years, the kids and I were often alone and in a strange city when a holiday hit. I hated it. One year the real tree was up, gifts underneath for 5 months, waiting for the ship to come back. I do not dare plug in the lights. The tree was so dried out. After Dick and I got married, of course there were church services on the holidays, so he had to work. Plus, we were often too far away to make it home the exact date of the holiday. And at that point in our life, the kids and grandkids were having their own celebrations. But one of the most memorable holidays that we ever had was when we lived in Iowa Falls, Iowa. Dick had to do a Thanksgiving Day service. I know, who does those? And then we took off for Glencoe and the gathering at my parents' home. It was only a 3-hour trip, straight up 35, well, almost straight. And we ran into a bad snow squall right around Clear Lake. And we joined a mass of humanity huddled into a gas station just off the interstate. It was like picnicking with strangers. For a brief moment in time, we were all in the same boat, eating whatever we could grab, pizza, donuts, chips, and eating it all with a sometimes view through the squall to see the surf ballroom just across the highway. And we shared memories of Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Havens. Then we parted, and Dick and I turned around and went back home. It was a good Thanksgiving.
It's okay if you don't eat what is considered a traditional meal. Change is good. Are you eating healthier? Less? Do you still have a relish tray? Raisins in the stuffing, or absolutely not? Do you call it stuffing or dressing? Do you cringe when someone asks for the ketchup? Does anyone really eat olives? Do you eat dessert immediately, or do you wait for a while? Anyone have a relative who belches after the meal thinking it's a compliment for the cook? Well, one year my sister and I thought it would be nice to have fancy cranberry sauce. Well, the kids, especially my nephew Dylan, thought that the Thanksgiving meal was ruined. We found out that cranberry sauce only comes in a can. It is not cranberry sauce unless it is in a can-shaped blob with lines from the can. We have never tried that fancy cranberry sauce again.
Is a prayer offered before your Thanksgiving meal? Ours was always offered by my dad. He always mentioned all of the good things about family and being together. It wasn't long, but it was perfect. After Dad died, Dick took over, and we had to wait considerably longer to eat. We need to recognize and feel how blessed we are. According to Psalm 107, one benefit of giving thanks is that doing so helps us recognize and feel how blessed we are. We recognize this in our minds, and we feel it in our emotions.
So what kind of blessing are we talking about? Psalm 107 gives us some ideas. Most of us appreciate this blessing of a home. A home can be a house that keeps us safe, comfortable, and warm. A home can also be a neighborhood or a city that feels familiar and right.
I've moved a lot and lived in many places where I never quite felt like I belonged. But every so often, I've moved to a new place where I immediately felt it right at home. You know, it's hard to define or explain that feeling. But when we feel it, we know we are blessed by God.
Besides the blessing of a home in Psalm 107, we are reminded that God blessed the Hebrews with food, satisfying the thirst and filling the hungry with good things, giving them fruitful harvests and maintaining their animal herds. Today we know of God's work in our lives in these same kind of ways. God feeds us when we're hungry, heals us when we're sick, and protects us from danger. Of course, we can always name exceptions.
Some of us will have an empty chair at our holiday table this year. It's been a rough year for many. COVID is wearing us all down. We're stressed and tired, and we're still expected to give thanks. It'll be difficult. Realize how many people love and support you. This is a group activity. Focus on the positive, and it improves life. A second benefit of giving thanks is that it helps us focus on the positive. And when we think of the good things in our lives and tell God and others how appreciative we are, well, our life actually improves. This is true no matter how bad our situation is. And if we can think positively, options open up, solutions appear, and our life will get better.
When the Hebrew people cried out for help, God heard them and delivered them from their distress. God met their needs in wonderful and loving ways. And no matter how much trouble we're in, no matter how bad we feel, God can help us too. When we say thanks, we remember this positive truth. It enables us to reach out for the help we need. It enables us to improve our life.
Now, Lincoln was the president who finally proclaimed Thanksgiving an official national holiday. 242 years had passed since the first Pilgrim Thanksgiving, and 3 previous presidents had turned down the idea. But in 1863, in the midst of the Civil War that was tearing the country apart, President Lincoln proclaimed the last Thursday in November as the annual celebration of Thanksgiving. Why did he do that? Certainly not because things were going well. Maybe President Lincoln knew that the whole country needed to put aside its negative thoughts. Maybe he realized that giving thanks helps us focus on the positive and improves our life. Would that also work for us at this time? Could be.
A third reason to give thanks is to remind ourselves that we aren't alone. When life is going well, it's easy to get a big head and think of our success or happiness is all that we've single-handedly pulled ourselves up by our own bootstraps. And when life isn't going well, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed, scared, depressed, and alone. Giving thanks to God keeps us from becoming conceited, arrogant, and selfish during the good times. And giving thanks to God helps us from feeling alone during the difficult times.
There's a story about a woman who asked her farmer husband to say grace before the meal. Her husband, who wasn't a very religious man, replied, "I don't know why you think we should thank the Lord when we're the ones that tilled the ground, we planted the seeds, we did the fertilizing, we harvested the crops, we ground the grain, we kneaded the dough, and we baked the bread." Maybe that farmer ought to realize that we did not put the sun in the sky or cause the rain to fall. We did not tilt the earth on its axis so the long days with summer would warm the soil. We did not create the first seeds and fertilizer. We did not even create our strong backs and smart brains. All those things are the work of God's hands, not ours.
The idea of giving thanks is also central to Native heritage and culture. And in this way, Thanksgiving is simply a chance to appreciate the good things of life, like family, community, and the riches of land. Long before our relatives arrived in the New World, Native tribes were celebrating the autumn harvest and the gift of Mother Earth's abundance. Native American spirituality, both traditionally and today, emphasized gratitude for creation, care for the environment, and recognition of the human need for communion with nature and others.
I grew up in a small dairy farm northeast of Blanco. My father loved and appreciated the land and was passionate about being a good steward of it. He loved the smell of dirt. I recently asked a large landowner if he and his family appreciated the responsibility that they had as caretakers of their land, and did they celebrate and give thanks for the role that they were playing? He stated that it wasn't anything that he thought of very often. He had no time to really enjoy it. He had all this big farm equipment to make payments on.
So, have we changed? Has the holiday changed to meet our needs, or have we been the ones to change? We may need to spend some time pondering that.
As a church community, we work, we play, we live in community with God and neighbor. And together we give and take, so that we each have each other to lean on, and so that all of our needs are met. Giving thanks reminds us that we're not alone.
In times of economic downturn or emotional distress, giving thanks might seem too difficult, too celebratory, and too artificial. However, it's important to remember that giving thanks isn't just something we do because it's polite or expected by others. Giving thanks is also something we do to help ourselves. We give thanks in order to recognize and feel how blessed we are. We give thanks in order to help us focus on the positive, which improves our life. And we give thanks to remind us that we aren't alone. To me, those all seem like really good reasons to give thanks.
Now, I was curious as to whether Louis Bluecoat was a mourner, or did his family celebrate Thanksgiving? So I asked him, and this was his answer. It's a celebration of our survival. We tell the story of whatever way the people know it, and we give thanks. And then we eat. Maybe this is the year that we too celebrate our survival and give thanks for it.
We give thanks for seed time and harvest and summer and winter and all nights and days throughout the year. Our God has been bountiful. May He create in us true gratitude that will make this day of Thanksgiving a day which we find a new focus.
We give thanks for those who have to work on Thanksgiving, the members of the military who are far from home, the truck drivers who keep the nation running and our stomachs full, the nurses, doctors, CNAs, and everyone else working long hours keeping our clinics and hospitals running efficiently in spite of being short of sleep and sometimes equipment. Take a moment to thank the people who are part of your life but aren't always visible.
We hope that this Thanksgiving, the hearts of all people, native and non-native, are filled with hope, healing, and a desire to dismantle the barriers, whether physical, economic, emotional, psychological, and spiritual, that divide us and oppress us. Thanksgiving is the holiday of peace, the celebration of work and the simple life. A true folk festival that speaks the poetry of the turn of the seasons and the deep connection of all these things with God.
Amen.